And I know, sorry, this county didn't have the issues that Maricopa County had. But it takes, like, used car salesmen. All you need is one to hose you over. You don't trust the rest of them. Okay, so we came into that. First off, your ballot boxes for the Queen Creek election. The poll pad things were stuck in it. So no locks. Locks got delivered later. It didn't have a slot to put it in, so we had access to it. So since my inspector didn't see it right off the top, we just put the transfer bag out there, and the first 3 voters that came in, the first guy goes, this is unacceptable. You have access to those ballots. This is a legal issue. And he goes, and I thought he's absolutely right. We're supposed to separate these ballots. So basically we took the regular blue box that we have to lock and we don't have the key for, and I just put everything in there because I know it's going to the same place. We can sort it later. We were trying to call and ask about that box. The phone lines aren't open at 5:30 when we're there. When they were open, they were backed up. We couldn't get through, or you're 12 in line, so 30 minutes later they'd address an issue. We knew early on that we were going to be low on ballots. There's 2 kinds of ballots, and we were calling them by their numbers yesterday. So there's a PM3, which is for Santan Valley, which doesn't have the Queen Creek issues on the back, and there's a PM4, which has the Queen Creek issues on the back, but we're not supposed to use that to vote. We have a separate Queen Creek ballot. So they told us about 20 minutes, and then it was about 20 minutes, and then it was about 20 minutes. We ran out completely at 1 o'clock. So I have Republican voters stacked up waiting for those ballots to come. We'd already issued them their tickets, and we put chairs out for them. We were trying to be cordial, keep everybody was was very cordial. But they're also watching Democratic ballots voters come through and pick their ballots up and go vote. It's pretty clear when there's a blue one being picked up right there at the voting tables or not. So it just didn't look good, and we had some people leave that were angry. Then you had issues like felt pins. Felt pins were an issue in Maricopa County last time, and I was assured that they weren't an issue here, but I had a lot of voters jam me about that.
Mr. Dorr, I'm going to ask you, your time is up at 3 minutes, so can you conclude, please?
Sure. You need to have better training. You need to educate your public about things like your felt pins. Paper's cheap, trust is not. And you had only about 500 votes cast. So out of those 500 votes, that was not last one I worked, we had 1,000 votes cast. So we didn't have too many people coming in. We just had too few ballots, and they weren't delivered. And when we did get ballots, they were PM3s anyway, and they're folded, and they say early voting on them. So I asked earlier, can we use those and do the Queen Creek ballot? They told us no. So anyway, you have some issues. I'd be more than happy to talk anytime you want or answer any of those questions, but firsthand,
thank you, Mr.
It wasn't good.
Okay, thank you. All right, next up, Kathleen Nowak. Please state your name and generally where you live.
My name is Kathleen Nowak. I live in Santan Valley. I'm the district chair for the Republican Party out there. And we have got some problems, and you guys know it. We are angry. We listened when you said the ballot box or the ballot misprint and so forth was human error. I said at that time we needed to rid ourselves of the problem. I'm telling you, we got to get rid of the problem now. The elections department is a problem. They have no ability to upgrade and renew the poll worker list. I was told they had 1,500 to 2,000 people on that list, and yet 2 weeks before the time they called me and said, oh, we need 10 to 15 more people in your district. So I recruited 11. Very few of them were actually used. 10 days before the election, I got an email saying you need 30 to 35 people in your area. as poll workers. My friend over in AJ got an email saying she needed 60 to 65 workers in that area. What the heck kind of planning is this that they don't know what they're doing? I think you can see that the planning is lacking, that they're in disarray or chaos. The training is even worse. Earl went into some of the details. I could tell you stories about supervisors that said that were instructing people to give the wrong ballots, to pass out the wrong ballots, that they didn't know what time the polls opened, supervisors that didn't call their people to help set up the day ahead, had no interaction with them at all. And when we talk about ballots, now here is the important thing. Always, common sense tells you, you look to see how many ballots you sent out in the last election for the primary so that you plan for even more. I had districts or polling places that told me they got 300 ballots and they've got a registration of of Republicans for 3,200 people. We've got polling places where they sent out 50 Republican ballots and 50 Democrat ballots. We're 3-1 in this county. This what kind of planning is this? What projections? And don't do the cover-up thing about how we had an influx of Republican voters and people turned in their mail-in ballot in order to vote there. My observers say there was 6 or 8 or 10. This is not what the problem was. We didn't produce enough ballots and and send them out to the polls. And then we had them being printed in Coolidge. And you ordered, if you were the supervisor in Precinct 26, you ordered 50, and an hour later or 3 hours later, you'd get ballots that they were printing off in Coolidge. This is totally, completely unacceptable. My solution, again, is to say, let's rid ourselves of the problem and go to the people who have knowledge of how this is run in the past in Pinal County. We've always had good elections. We've got some people that know. I think our recorder's there. I think there's other people. I think we've got attorneys who know the process and how it should be. We need to do something different in Pinal County. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nowak. Next, Dan Dooley, please.
Good morning, Chairman, rest of the board. Precincts without ballots. I can't tell you it's already a national embarrassment. But the most important thing is the damage to the citizens that couldn't vote. Enough said about that. I thought about it last night, tried to take my emotions out of it. And I thought about this. First of all, I've had over 20 years of quality assurance or quality control experience with a Fortune 500, Fortune 100 company. And the first thing that came to my mind was, you've got a serious quality assurance problem, structurally as well as qualified people that really know about quality. And quality is many things, and I'm not going to preach about it, but let's look at it like this. You've had 2 major problems in the last few months. The first time was 7 localities where the ballots were messed up. Okay? I can deal with 1 or 2, maybe as a statistical analysis, maybe 1 locality, but 7? Okay, and then a month or so later, we are running out of ballots in 12 to 20 precincts. That statistically is ridiculous. I mean, it's unacceptable. The only thing I could think of is that there are no standards, weak standards, no continuous improvement process within that department and or the county. Maybe there is. I'm not trying to bash the whole thing because I think the county overall runs pretty well. But this is the second time in a short time. Easily fixed. These things can be easily fixed. The second thing is administrative problems, which tie into a quality control or quality assurance program. You either don't have enough qualified staff or enough staff at all in certain areas. The second thing, and it's probably something you need to review, is the vetting or interview process is faulty. You can't bring in a new elections director and have these problems in such a short amount of time. Now, I'm not trying to attack that individual, but just look at it collectively. How does this happen? So the job performance, the expectations are low in some cases, and there has to be some way of measuring that. So again, if I emphasize anything, it's something like that has to be reviewed from top to bottom, and that means county manager, board of supervisors, directors in the department. Everybody plays a part. So I think if you have any questions on that, I can certainly give you my input because I've had experience in this before. In the private sector, these things are rectified pretty quickly, and you can't sugarcoat this kind of stuff. This is the problem, and this is where we move forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Dooling. Steve Poe, please. Mr. Poe.
Thank you. Good morning. And I'd like to first say thanks to Mike Goodman for showing up yesterday to address the concerns that you're hearing about with the running out of ballots. He was very thorough in his explanation on what was going on, but it kind of blew my mind that we're printing ballots on Election Day, okay? That's inexcusable and unacceptable to all the people in Pinal County. I'm sure of that. After the 2020 election, I volunteered to be a precinct committee man. So I'm in precinct 28, and that's where I was yesterday as a volunteer to be a poll observer. So I got to watch all the interaction, and I will say that Earl and his team were unbelievable. They calmed the whole situation down. Most people were okay. They came back and voted later once we had the ballots because we put a list together to let them know that they're here. There were a few that got angry, and there was one that sat there and waited for about 3 hours for the ballots to show up. Mike came back later after we'd received the ballots, which I thought was outstanding, good follow-up. But unfortunately, all of this really, he told me that you guys hold responsibility for what happened in this because you guys approved this new director of elections, David Frisk. I'm sorry, but I had to mention his name. He needs to be held accountable, and by being held accountable, I mean he needs to be terminated. The first mistake was, first mistake is shame on you. Second one is shame on me. I don't see how we can go forward with this guy in charge of our elections because we've got the general coming up pretty soon. And God only knows how this one's going to turn out because as of 9 o'clock last night, there were 0 in from Pinal County. So I hope that you guys could do the right thing and replace this individual. And I don't mean just replace him and put him down into the committee somewhere. He needs to be removed from the system. And thanks for hearing me out.
Mr. Poe, would you please just state your name and generally where you live? I mean, I know you got to speak, but would you please, for the record, please just state your name and generally where you are?
I'm sorry, Steve Poe. I live in Queen Creek.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Next up, Bill Hoff. If you would, please, we'll cut the formality. Please state your name and generally where you live. Thank you.
Bill Hoff, resident of Queen Creek. I am a precinct captain. And in fairness to your time and those in the crowd, I'll make this short. I have had the privilege of sitting in on poll watching in 3 different states, and more so the privilege of sitting in on the one in Queen Creek just 2 years ago. And watching the expression on people's faces when they came in yesterday to do nothing more than vote their conscience, being told we ran out of ballots, and then to complicate that further, not being able to tell them when or if they will ever come in. And the folks who waited patiently then came back. They were instructed to come back before 7 o'clock. As Steve mentioned, we were able to get a little bit of a list together to call these folks just to say, yes, they're in, hurry on down. The patience of these people was unbelievable, and it made me proud to be a part of the community. But we cannot allow this lack of ballots to ever happen in our community, or frankly anywhere else again. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Hoff. Belinda Rodriguez. And again, please state your name and generally where you live. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Belinda Rodriguez, and I live in District 5, Gold Canyon, but have most recently, probably for about the last year, been helping in D2, because I lived in this area as well, and helping Kathy Nowak with a lot of her things to help in her district. So I've had some experience in state government, and I've owned my own business for over 22 years, and many years of project management. I know you've heard a lot of the incidents so far, and I'm sure you're going to hear a lot more. So I'm not going to dwell on a lot of those. I'm just going to say by 10 a.m. yesterday, a lot of the precincts in our area had run out of ballots. You have access to voter history, as I'm sure the elections department does as well, because I just went to your site and downloaded it myself and could see the numbers. It would have taken someone 30 minutes to an hour to analyze that data and to see and evaluate how many ballots would have been needed at each precinct. For instance, Precinct 28, they had 3,276 voters previously. They received 350 ballots. I don't think it takes a genius to figure that math out that they're going to run out. Every precinct received between 350 is the highest amount I've heard. Yet, we overprinted at the precinct I was working at yesterday, 600 municipal ballots. I don't understand why, okay? And that they only had voters registered previously of 607. Somebody's not doing their analysis. And you all know, in project management, there's a lot of different steps, okay? You have to have step by step. And somebody missed the research and analysis part in this whole thing. Poll observers, we started scheduling poll observers for both, and I'm speaking as to what I did in the areas that I helped, as early as May, and we had to turn in lists by June 15th. And then all of a sudden, we had all our stations filled, and we start getting phone calls from our observers saying, I have to cross me off because I'm now a poll worker. So we had to scramble up until the last minute. You know, Vicki and Kathy had to go scramble and fill those spots again because they were taken by poll workers. We're looking to do whatever helps the county and the party and everyone involved, okay? But there's got to be better planning. We were told there was a list of 4,000 poll workers early on. Why are we waiting till the last minute to find poll workers? I spoke to a couple of the inspectors at the precincts, and they said that they did not ever receive any lists of their workers. One of them had to drive all the way to Coolidge the day before to get their list of workers in order to know who was going to be at that precinct. That's inexcusable. There's got to be better design or assignment of tasks and responsibilities, okay? The last thing is that when I stayed until everything was done and closed. The Public Works gentlemen were great. They picked up the boxes, and we were trying to, quickly get everything together so they could take the whole cage. Nope. They were only going to take the boxes with the ballots. But what happened is we left 475 municipal ballots, maybe 150 to, I think it was 272 in all of all the other unused ballots. That's where the shenanigans happen. Why did we not secure those as well? That's, again, inexcusable, okay? Someone is not communicating. And again, all I urge you to is there are steps in project management, okay, that people have to take. You have to initiate the project, you have to analyze, research, you got to plan, you got to execute. Execute means you have to put together a procedural plan so that year after year, whoever comes in knows exactly what they're going to do. If that gentleman,
Please wrap up.
yep, if that gentleman gets run over by a truck, tomorrow somebody can step in and fill their role. And so I urge you to do that. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. Okay, Heather Tipple, I believe.
Good morning. My name is Heather Tipple. I live in Santan Valley. I'm here to speak to you, and I do appreciate your time. Thank you so much. This morning about our youth sports. I'm a resident baseball mom, and I feel like it's extremely important that we start to work to get some fields for our kids for sports. We're at the mercy of the schools and using green space where we can find it, getting kicked out of HOAs, running into all kinds of trouble here. I think you guys all can agree how important youth sports are. It keeps our kids goal-oriented, out of trouble, healthy, active. My son is 13, plays baseball. I asked him, Cody, what do you feel you need a baseball field for? And a 13-year-old gave me the description of, it's like when you want to go to the beach, Mom, but somebody takes you to a splash pad. He's like, that experience just isn't there. And he's like, you can't feel the game when you're, playing in some grass and there's holes everywhere and no backstop and balls are running into the street. It poses a danger. Again, Mr. Goodman, I kind of read up on your history, and, I feel like your father, he started the Rough Riders, if I recall. I think he had the vision that the Santan Little League has right now for our kids. We need something. We need structure for them, and we're all here. We're willing to help. You tell me what you need. You tell me what you want, and I'm on it. Whatever, I will give that commitment to all of you and to our little area here. And I do understand the complications that we run into of not being an actual town or city. So I do get that. But I feel as a united front and as a group, we can make differences. We can make changes. This is something I really, really feel important need for our kids out here. I thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Tipple. And Supervisor Goodman, your name was mentioned, if you'd like to respond.
Yeah, I would, thank you. And I appreciate that, and a tribute to my father, I appreciate that as well. And I'm falling very short of my dad's accomplishments, I'll tell you that right now. I see that, but just so you know, and I appreciate your willingness to step into the wind with me, the storm, because that's really what we're doing. And I'm going to take you up on that, because we've been in the process over the last 2 years working on this very issue that you're talking about, and specifically for the Little League program. So we're taking a lot of initiatives. So anyway, if you'll get with me out directly following the meeting, or get a hold of my staff, and we'll get you into the loop. Thank you so much.
All right. Next would be Daniel Vincent. For the record, please state your name and generally where you live.
Daniel Vincent, Santan Valley. I'm obviously speaking on the same issue. I'm a board member with the Santan Valley Little League. I think we spoke on the phone 3-4 weeks back. I appreciate everybody's time on this matter, so I'll try to be as quick as possible. Santan Valley was established, the Little League was established back in 2011 as a charter through Little League International. Ever since, we've struggled to find fields. We use Copper Basin, Walker Butte. We've tried to look at other places, but every field's almost exactly the same. It's through FUSD, and barely any of them are playable. We're bleeding funds, the funds that we've raised to give kids scholarships to play in these youth sports, and we're bleeding funds just trying to take care of and maintain the fields that the schools aren't maintaining, and They just raised the rates almost 67% a couple weeks back, and that's a lot. That is a lot of money that we're going to have to pay to play at these fields that are in poor condition as is, that we're using all of our money to make them better and not getting a cut from it, you know. They're not doing us any favors there. The population is well over 100,000. Queen Creek, they've got, I believe, 3 complexes right now, baseball complexes and softball complexes, and building 4 and 5 as we speak. And it's extremely disappointing that we haven't been able to do that here. And I know I've got an older son that's 18 that kind of grew up in this whole system, so I was doing this in 13 and 14 when it was brand new. And I remember then we were still trying to find fields, and here we are almost 12 years later, still fighting the same cause. I just, like she had said, like, we are here to help. Like, we just need some land and we'll build it, you know. We just need help locating that or knowing of what's for sale and what is able to be leased or purchased or whatever, so we can build that here, you know. I think everybody on that board in Little League is trying to fight for the same cause. We are on this thing till we bring a complex to Santan Valley. I think most of our kids will probably be grown and out of Little League, but it's for the next generation, you know, and generations to come, hopefully. So, Daniel Vincent, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vincent. All right, next up, Ralph Atchu.
Mr. Chairman and Board, my name is Ralph Atchu. I live in Eloy, Arizona. And Eloy had its fair share of election problems as well, but that's not the topic I'm speaking on. As a longtime citizen of Pinal County, I've become growingly concerned about the politicalization of the Pinal County Sheriff's Department. While I fully understand that this is an elected office, and as such, will have candidates taking partisan positions, it is becoming apparent that Sheriff Lamb is crossing a line that we consider to be dangerous. Pinal County has a diverse population. We come from all walks of life and hold an infinity of political and policy perspectives. Due to his extreme right-wing activism, however, Sheriff Lamb has directly put those of us who disagree with him on notice. He does not represent us, and we fear that he will fail to uphold his oath of office to serve and protect us. Sheriff Lamb has publicly aligned himself with radical conspiracies such as anti-vaccinations, the big lie, and Stop the Steal. He has voiced support for the January 6th rioters and encouraged the formation of militia groups similar to the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers, now known to have organized and participated in the violent storming of our Capitol. He's affiliated with Protect America Now and similar organizations that lobby for a more militarized police force and the building of an army to fight against our democratically elected government. Sheriff Lamb and a few other so-called constitutional sheriffs describe themselves as the supreme legal authority in America and therefore put themselves above the authority of both the President and the Supreme Court of the United States. My references and quotes can be found in publicly printed news articles and are readily available. If upon request, I will supply them. Pinal County needs a sheriff, a law enforcement officer, and not a reality show character. The Pinal Board of Supervisors has an oath-sworn duty to serve the people who reside here. When the elected sheriff demonstrates that he is no longer to be trusted to uphold his oath of office, it's time for this board to investigate and take action. The citizens of Pinal County deserve and should expect nothing less. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Atchu. Susan, I believe it says Wortman.
My name is Susan Wortman. I live in Casa Grande. Greetings to all of you. I'm here to share my perspective of my late husband, Dr. Randy J. Wortman, who is part of the posse. When Randy retired from education in 2006, he decided to be a member of our county's posse because he felt it was be an important way to give back to our community and do something to help Casa Grande besides personal growth and adventure. Volunteering has always been part of our lives, and helping to bring safety to our community members was a wonderful goal for him to work on. But back then, there were several tests that proposed posse members had to pass in order to be an official Pinal County posse member. However, Randy was able to pass the target gun test, but didn't pass the entire weapon test because he was not able to reload the gun fast enough. At that time, his Parkinson's disease was getting worse, and Randy dealt with this issue as he always dealt problems. He effectively problem solved, thought creatively out of the box, and figured out a different way to be a posse member. Randy didn't give up at all. He proposed a recruitment program to find new members and offered himself as the head of this proposed project. And so Sheriff Chris Vasquez and the posse officers decided that his communication skills were so effective they kept him in the posse for the purpose of recruiting new members. So Randy became a formal Pinal County member. Since his main assignments were recruitment and publicity and public relations, Randy would want to make sure that all of you know that it's a highly trained, specialized uniformed group, and they do a lot of extensive training and duties. When Randy recalled his activities with the posse, he concluded that political issues did divert the sheriff's attention from posse projects, and so some of the volunteer program was kind of ignored. When Randy was part of the posse, he respected Sheriff Chris Vasquez, who was our county sheriff between 2005 and 2009. The sheriff current, Mark Lamb, in my opinion, has politicized his job too far and has been focused more about power issues, and so he seems to be selective about which laws he's enforcing. My husband loved to be part of a group that was bringing safety to our community. But the message now seems to, from Mr. Lamb and other sheriffs around the country, seems to be that sheriffs are here to protect your freedom, including freedom from your own democratically elected government. I think our world has been so scary and crazy. If we're afraid of our own sheriff, we all need to work on making our communities more safe. I think we need to be honest about where the unsafe elements are coming from. Please look at what's happening in our community. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Ms. Wortman. Lastly, here I have Margaret Baca.
Good morning.
Could you please
My name is Margaret Baca, and I'm from Casa Grande. To the Board of Supervisors of Pinal County, I'm not sure what you can do about this. However, I do feel it is very important to bring this to your attention as well as the attention of the citizens of Pinal County. Sheriff Mark Lamb has formed and participates in groups called Protect America Now and True the Vote. My question to Sheriff Lamb is, Protect America, more specifically Pinal County, from what? I don't recall any election problems from the 2020 election in our county. We actually saw Republicans win their races. We saw that the Pinal County Board of Supervisors, with a Republican majority, certified the 2020 election. It appears that Sheriff Lamb is looking for a solution to a non-existent problem. Sheriff Lamb is trying to incorporate the ridiculous big lie theory and most recently 2,000 mules, nothing proven, into how he runs this office. On a county, state, and federal level, the 2020 election was deemed accurate and secure. All 60 lawsuits were dismissed because of lack of factual evidence. The United States Attorney General, William Barr, a Trump appointee, stated that there was no evidence of fraud. We can run around with our hair on fire, crying election fraud, with absolutely no proof, or we can work to follow our Constitution and rule of law. Put divisive actions, such as Project America Now and the vote, in the dumpster of bad ideas and move on. We don't need an armed militia intimidating voters at election sites. Now then, because of the recent problems of the election that we just heard about, I truly believe that you should investigate this. This would be very prudent. And correct the mistakes that were made. But in no way do I feel that there is any fraud. So let's get on to the business at hand. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Baca. That's the end of my request. Are there any others that wish to address the board? Okay, I've got 4, so I'm going to start. Ms. Smith, I'm going to let you go first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Board of Supervisors. My name is Nancy Smith, City Council Member for the City of Maricopa. In listening to all of the information that's been shared thus far, I want to make it clear it's not just a simple situation where there were not enough ballots printed. In the City of Maricopa, there's also this issue that the correct ballots were not given to our voters. In several precincts, we had voters that came to vote and were not given the supplemental ballot for the city council race, and so that's a second problem. And I also see this as a systemic problem in the Pinal County. 2 years ago, the City of Maricopa had ballot problems. I'm glad the City of Casa Grande did not, but the City of Maricopa did have ballot problems in 1 or 2, I want to say 1 for certain, of the precincts where the council members were left off as well. So this is obviously a systemic problem, something that needs to be fixed. My recommendation would be to include city clerks in an evaluation subcommittee so that we can get to the issues of these process problems. And a simple solution would be that if our city clerk had been given a ballot from every precinct prior to printing the ballots, she certainly could have caught the problems initially. And then we also know, as of yesterday, that there are process problems in training and that we have to resolve those issues as well. So it's definitely a serious problem. In listening on the radio, it's embarrassing. Pinal County was made fun of in every way, shape, and form throughout the day. It's become a national problem, and it's something we must fix. I appreciate your looking at that and making some very, very solid recommendations and including the city clerks as part of the solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Next, sir, the turquoise shirt. He stands out.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. My name is Bill Robertson, resident of Maricopa. I'd like to start off by saying a month ago you were handed a very serious problem with the debacle in the printing of the ballots. You stepped up, you handled that in short order with what I thought was a very reasonable solution. We had a very large public campaign in Maricopa to educate our citizens on the 2 ballots, the orange stripe. You will be given 2 ballots, and this is the way it will function when you get to the polls. The problem is that's not what happened yesterday morning. As early as 8 o'clock in the morning, I had friends calling me saying, we're at Precinct 80, and there's a stack of supplemental ballots, and they have no idea what they're for. They're insisting we use the original ballots, which did have the city local elections on the back of. So was that an old ballot that was supposed to be tossed out? Were the new ones not even supposed to have that on? How did it get into circulation? So we have that problem with a systemic organizational problem and training. I don't know if the poll workers were some of those poll workers that might have had to get cast into their role at the last minute due to absenteeism or no-shows or what the case was, but there was definitely a problem with getting the poll workers trained. And it wasn't until 5:30 at Precinct 80 that they started giving out the second supplemental ballot. You know that county commission elections and city council elections are won and lost by a handful of ballots. This has the potential to affect the outcome of our local election in the city of Maricopa. We know that you work hard behind the scenes. We don't see that. We don't see the sausage being made. But gentlemen, you're not judged on the journey. You are judged on the results. And you are hearing the results this morning. They're not good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Robertson. Next, Mr. Manfredi.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. Vince Manfredi, I'm the acting mayor of the city of Maricopa. I'm also up for actual re-election, so it was a fun day at the polls yesterday. I own a business, and I've owned businesses all my life, and mistakes happen. We all know that. It's how we react to the mistakes and get solutions in place that determine how we move forward, right? But let's be clear, we can't continue to let them happen, or else none of us would be in business long, and I know a couple of you guys own businesses yourself. I'd never allow continued mistakes in my business, and I wouldn't allow them as an elected position either in the city of Maricopa. We'd find solutions. The good news is that there were solutions found, and we educated the people of Maricopa pretty well. Unfortunately, the education didn't happen at the poll worker level. So I'll give you a quick breakdown. In some precincts, they didn't open the precincts until 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning. Not 6 a.m., 9 or 10. The precinct doors opened up for people to vote. If you wanted to vote before you went to work, it was impossible in those precincts. Ballots were not handed out to municipal voters, even though those voters were begging for that ballot and fighting for that ballot. They were yelled at, insulted, and told to get out of the polling place. They're breaking the law by asking for a ballot they were supposed to get because we educated them in knowing they were supposed to get that ballot. Nonstop for 3 weeks. We told them, get your second ballot, make sure you vote on both ballot, on one ballot for the municipal races. They were thrown out of the polling places for it. I asked them to go back. They got thrown out again. I went in and I got thrown out of the polling place, telling them, hey, you got to give them 2 ballots. We finally got it solved at 5:30 at night. So all day, those folks did not get municipal ballots. They did not vote. They were disenfranchised from voting. Education was a big issue. Our county attorney and others did a wonderful job. You guys had some videos out. I seen Jeff's video out. You guys had some great videos out. The county did some great work pushing that information out there. People knew they needed the second ballot, but we failed at the election department in training the people who actually handed out the second ballot. They refused. Now, a young man earlier said that paper is cheap and trust is not. That was the last issue that we faced when people ran out of ballots. We did not print enough ballots. How is that possible that we don't print enough ballots? That's a systematic issue, a problem with our elections department that needs to be solved. I'm not saying, Oh, we all heard the saying, the buck stops here. In this situation, it's you. The buck stops with you. And you're responsible for what happens at the election department. It's your job. So please make sure that when we get an election coming up for our general election, it's perfect. Because we are right now being called the dirt people of Pinal County on public radio. This is what we're being called. It's an embarrassment to us as Pinal County residents, embarrassment to you as our supervisors, embarrassment to every elected official in Pinal County. We have to make sure we do better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manfredi. Mr. Vidiello.
Chair, Supervisors, thank you for having me here today. I'm Councilmember Rich Vidiello from the City of Maricopa. I am also up for re-election. I'm not going to go over what everybody said about the elections because there's no more I can simply say is I'm going to go on the selfish side as council, as a candidate who had to spend, same with all the other people who had to run for election right now. We had to spend a lot of money to run for this election. Heads need to roll. I'm going to keep it short and simple. I spent a lot of money. I spent a lot of time. I probably spend 30 to 40 hours a week minimum campaigning. And again, I know this is emotional. I know this is selfish, but every candidate out there who ran for election may have to go to generals who shouldn't have to go. They may have to spend more money on advertising. They may have to spend more time away from their families, their children, their grandchildren, that we have to go spend all this extra time. So again, everything that everybody said is 100% true. But I want to know who's going to be accountable for this. I run a small business in the city of Maricopa. I'm the general manager. If this happened to my company, my boss would fire me instantly. If there's no accountability, this is going to be another issue that you're going to have to look at. People need to be accountable. Again, you guys came out, you did a great job fixing. Yes, that was all true. But then the ball got dropped major at the polls. People didn't know what they were doing. They didn't know where their 75-foot marker was. I had to show them where that was. I had signs removed that I had to go back and re-put them back in, along with other candidates, because they didn't know where the 75-foot line was. We got thrown out of polling stations because we were trying to help them and let them know what was right and wrong. What were you doing wrong? This affects me greatly because, again, we look like a laughing stock. I'm a New York boy who just hits it straight in the middle. I don't sugarcoat nothing. Thank you for your guys' hard work, but the ball got dropped and heads need to roll. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vidiello. Any others that wish to address the board? Mr. Bean.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Vice Chairman, members of the board. I did get an email, I believe it was, from the chairman here just recently telling me that the issue that I wanted to address is going to be brought up sometime in August. I decided I wasn't too sure when. Let's kick it off now. The issue, up on the screen, number 2, it says call to public. How many in this room? I'm sure the board knows. What does the word public mean? Who can come up to this speaker stand and speak? It's anyone who is not an elected official. If an elected official comes up here during call to the public, they should be ruled out of order and told to return to their seat. If they want to speak to the board, they must be on the agenda. This is not an agenda place for that to happen. This happened back in June when Sheriff Lamb took this speaker's dais. He did start speaking to the board, and then he turned and started yelling and screaming and walking toward me out of control, not speaking to the board, speaking to me. That should have been stopped immediately. Somebody should have banged a gavel and told him, "You are out of order, take your seat." That did not happen. Further on this list, Those wishing to address the Pinal County Board of Supervisors need not request permission. He should have continually addressed the board. He instead wanted me to lose my freedom of speech. He didn't like what I said. That's fine. But he had no business telling me to retract what I said, to return to this dais and apologize. I'm sorry, you would have ruled that out of order. I cannot come up a second time. That was totally out of the question. I knew that. I don't know if Lamb knew that, but I hope the board knew that. This is not a second chance place to speak. I'm hoping that the Department of Justice looks into the sheriff's actions on that day. He tried to rob me of my freedom of speech, my freedom to address the board, and to do it correctly, and he did nothing correctly. Thank you very much.
What was his name? Tom Bean. I'm sure.
Call him something.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Kavanaugh.
I'm requesting that you direct the county management staff to investigate the procedures and what has happened in this election. Would you please do that?
All right. I'm sorry, Mr. Keller.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. Supervisor Kavanaugh, I believe you're asking to have something placed on a future agenda item and asking the county manager for follow-up on that item, and that can be done.
Does that satisfy your
Yes, it was not agenda item. It's the chairman's discretion to instruct the county manager to look into the issues that were brought up with respect to voting, and I'm asking the chairman to exercise that authority.
Thank you, Mr. Kavanaugh. And Mr. Liu will be looking into the election issues, I know, as we're already doing that now. So we will have further discussions. Does that satisfy your request, Mr. Kavanaugh?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
If I could further that also includes our county attorney's office to be a part of that process.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. And Mr. Volkmer, you've been invited to the group. All right. Any others? Mr. Reck.
I'm Noel Reck from Casa Grande. First, whatever election problems exist, what I'm going to speak to today is not the answer. I've been told by those who are knowledgeable that there's no oversight, no accountability, no recourse, and no present way to stop it. The it being the collaboration between Sheriff Lamb, his organization Protect America Now, and True the Vote. Today, as others have done, I speak to expose this alliance and the abuse of the sheriff's power and office that's being perpetrated in Pinal County and beyond. Articles in Politico and the Daily Star, as well as their own videos being aired on the internet, clearly show the danger of this alliance. The first video shows Sheriff Lamb and the founder of True the Vote explaining their partnership as a nonpartisan effort to engage and educate confused and angry voters concerned about a lack of accountability when election processes break down, meting out consequences when voting laws aren't followed, and thus restoring America's confidence in the electoral process. They soft sell this by saying it's not about Democrats or Republicans, just the rule of law. A visit to their website, however, tells quite a different story. It is quickly apparent that this is not a nonpartisan effort, but an extension of the Stop the Steal, Big Lie, Trump Won movement. True the Vote, which produced and promoted the debunked film 2,000 Mules, explains that they will provide sheriffs across the nation with the resources and grants, training, and best practices to ensure that voting rolls are accurate, votes are counted properly, polls are operated properly, thus protecting the integrity of our elections. I ask, why do we need an outside extremist group to provide this? We don't. What exactly are they talking about providing? We don't know that, but I have a pretty good idea. This outside interference helps explain why some election officials and poll workers are leaving their positions, many afraid for their lives. It doesn't take much to see the resources, training, and best practices would be used to infiltrate the electoral process with supporters of the big lie to subvert, not strengthen the electoral process. I'm more the concern that mingling their money and assistance with that provided by taxpayer dollars makes all of us a party to this abuse of power and the calamitous results that follow. Protect America Now's site features Sheriff Lamb in a video rant about law and order, open borders, crime-ridden cities, progressives taking their guns away, fighting back against the liberal takeover, calling out lies and fake news as images of CNN and Dr. Fauci flash across the screen, pushing back against an overreaching government that wants to make America less safe, secure, and free as images of President Biden flash across the screen, all in the pursuit of winning a purported battle for America's soul. And to help out, please donate $17.76 a month. $17.76, which was not coincidentally the battle cry of the January 6th insurrectionists. Does any of that sound nonpartisan to you? Is there any hope? Well, perhaps Sheriff Lamb can be voted out. Perhaps he'll resign and seek full-time employment with True the Vote. Perhaps he'll back out of this collaboration and work for his constituents as he should. Perhaps the Board of Supervisors can cut his funding for use in other areas since True the Vote is so willing to fund these activities. More reasonably, we can produce a citizens' initiative to change our Constitution and rein in this excessive power so America's soul can truly be saved. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Reck. Any others that wish to address the board? In the back, please. Yeah. And please state your name and generally where you live. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lori Loomis, and I am a new transplant. I lived in Maricopa County for the past 5 years, and just recently moved to Pinal County in Gold Canyon. And I'm just going to speak about my incident yesterday at my new polling place, and how uninformed they were on how to handle my transfer, since I hadn't switched my driver's license over yet and had my new voter registration switched over yet. They told me that I needed to go back to Maricopa County since that's where I was registered to vote. So I then thought that this was funny because they told me I couldn't vote where I lived in Gold Canyon. So I went back to Maricopa County to my former polling place, where I had voted before. And then they said, no, you have to vote where you live. And they showed me in the Pinal County guidelines, this is what you need to show them so that you can vote in Pinal County. And I said, okay, I have all of that. And then I went back to Pinal County to show them that. And when I went back to my voting place, they were out of Republican ballots. They had been out. They said that they had ordered them at 1 o'clock. Well, I had gotten there at 4 o'clock. So I said, well, I'll come back. I'll go home for a swim, and then I'll come back. And I came back at 6 o'clock then, and thankfully they had ballots. And they thanked me for coming back. But then we had to go through the process again, and they gave me a provisional ballot. But then the gentleman that was kind of overseeing everything said, I don't know if your vote is going to count. And I said, well, then why am I doing this? And my vote should count. Every vote should count. I'm a resident here. My vote should count. So I just want to explain that there's some education pieces that need to happen, and that I'm very disturbed about my experience yesterday. That's all. On this particular portion of the agenda. I'll be back later on.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Loomis. All right. Any others that wish to address the board? I'm going to have to call it soon because we have unfortunately, I'll get to you. We have a press conference at 1 o'clock that we get to attend. So, okay, sir in the suit, yes.
Honorable Chair, board members, good morning. My name is Glenn Walp. I reside in Gold Canyon. And I'm here reference the president of the Adobe organization in Gold Canyon, the Association for the Development of a Better Environment. I'm here to indicate that the association is opposed to the approval that is going to be presented to you today regarding the new sign by Center Stage Church. I think you're all familiar with the nomenclature of the sign. It's nearly 5 foot by 8 foot. It's a digital reader board with animation on it. And one of the things I want to make clear, it has nothing to do with the degree of illumination. We understand that this board, if it's put up, will be less than what normally was there, and that's fine, but that's not the issue. The issue deals that the board, just like in the movie The Jerk, when Steve Martin thought he was being shot at and he said, hey, it's the cans, it's the cans, it's the cans. It's not the church. We in the association, Gold Canyon residents, we welcome the church. And you won't find anybody stronger standing before you that will welcome the gospel of Jesus Christ into Gold Canyon. I stand strong in that, and I'll die on that hill. And so we wish them well. We wish them success. It's all about the sign. The sign is out of place. It does not belong in Gold Canyon. It is a, if you will, as an analogy, a type of Las Vegas type sign. It's flashing, it's moving, it's large. Even though I understand it will be out between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. in the morning, that's not when people are out there. We took a vote, and hundreds of people in the Adobe Association voted it down, if you will. There were a few that said it was fine. If you look on the Facebook today, there was a poll taken yesterday. 45 people responded to that. Most of them were against it. There were a few that didn't care. But the Adobe people and the citizens of Gold Canyon just feel it's out of place. And this is our concern. You approve that sign. There's nothing stopping all the other businesses on that strip from saying, hey, we want our sign. Maybe larger, maybe smaller. We understand that Walgreens at one time said, hey, we want a flashing sign. The board at that time shut it down. You can bet who's going to be next if you approve it. And then we have other shops all up along the line. That's what the people don't want. Using the words of the people that responded, we don't want it to the Kings Ranch Road turn into a mini Las Vegas Strip. That's all we're saying. We love the church. We welcome them. We just don't want this sign. There's another sign going right up. There's another church right next to it, a Baptist church. They're putting in a sign right now that cost them thousands and thousands of dollars and fully complies with your current rules. There's just no need for that sign there. And so respectfully, I'm asking you to consider that when you vote today, that the citizens of Gold Canyon, those that responded to our votes, said no, we just don't want it. And I thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walp. Any others? You've been here. I'm sorry, ma'am, that you, yes. Yes. I don't know your name. I just have to point. Sorry about that. Yeah. And just as a note on the sign, there will be a chance for you to speak later. There's a public hearing on this, so you don't need to do call to the public. You can come back at the public hearing.
Well, then maybe I should do that, because I have some facts and figures that I'd like to present that are more specific than what Glenn just mentioned.
Okay.
So
that would be great. So you could.
I could save you some time right now.
I forget which number it is, but it's downstream. Which one? Number 9. So
Okay.
it'll be in a little bit.
Okay, I'll be back.
Okay, thank you. Any others that wish to address the board? Mr. Reveles.
Roberto Reveles, resident of Gold Canyon, frequent user of the podium.
I believe you get miles for this as a flyer.
Truth, transparency, and accountability. That has been my theme over the last 2 decades that I've appeared before this board and its previous iteration when it was a 3-member board. But I recently was subjected to the intimidation referred to by a previous speaker when, at a previous meeting here in this room, Sheriff Mark Lamb walked up to me and pointed at me, and you're hearing this again, and said, you and your fellow Democrats are destroying our country. No, Mr. Chairman, Democrats are not destroying the country. Neither are truthful Republicans destroying the country. It is people who take advantage of fear-mongering and the big lie. And so today's election calls for calmness on the part of your constituents. And so I'm going to overlook my prepared remarks to simply say, please, again, listen to those of us who have been over 2 decades, starting with the previous Sheriff Paul Bebu, who I can claim I brought truthfulness to this board that finally resulted in his removal from office by the voters. I ask again today, perform financial and performance reviews, not only on Sheriff Mark Lamb, but on the disastrous chaos being caused by the Elections Department. Please do not ignore this request as other requests have been ignored. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Reveles. Any others that wish to address the board? Seeing none, we'll close call to the public, and we will move to County Manager's report. Mr. Liu.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Further on the consent agenda, we do have an item regarding nonprofit contributions, and I wanted to take the opportunity to highlight an example of what good is being done in the community and the impact that those have in District 5, and this was from a contribution from the previous fiscal year for an organization, Good Shepherd, and we have a video that's going to make the point much better than I can.
Good Shepherd Healing Ministries in Apache Junction.
I came here in 1985. I started buying and selling horses, and then I started saving horses, and I found that my calling was to save them, rehab them, and help them.
I kind of felt like I've always had that connection with horses.
Some dilapidated horses in terrible condition come in. They save them, they get them fattened up and healthy, and they find homes for them.
Some people drop them off in my driveway. I don't even know who they are. So am I going to say to this horse, sorry, you have to go down the street, I'm not going to feed you? No, I'm not going to do that.
This is Esther. She's my horse. She's pretty stubborn, but most of the time we get along.
Volunteers are amazing here, and a lot of times you get kids from the inner city that come out that would never ordinarily see a horse, touch a horse, and they get to work with them, and it makes a lasting impact on their lives.
We're an inner city school down in downtown Phoenix, and our kids are required to do service learning. So they have to come out, they have to give back to the communities, and so we brought a group out here, and they loved it. They cleaned stalls, they cleaned buckets, they groomed horses, and so now every time they see me, they ask me when we're coming back.
We have some children with autism, and it's amazing to see that a horse will instinctively know this child is not going to hurt me and he's going to help me, and so it's a bonding.
Kids that have some behavior problems and some major medical problems, it's just something calming for the kids when they're around the horses, because they're big, and so they automatically know they have to calm down because the horse, they're so small and the horse is so big, so it's just a great pairing.
What are the two things out here that people love? Horses and kids, and this organization helps both.
Because of where my school is, it's really important for them to be somewhere where they can love somebody. So for them, cleaning stalls to make it better for the horses it's just what they want to do. They won't clean up the playground, but they'll come out here and scrub buckets and muck stalls, yes.
It's very, very, very difficult, especially now, because feed prices have gone sky high, and even the people that just have private horses they're calling me and or trying to find out where, if I can't take them, who can take them. And they said, well, we've called two other places, they can't take them. It's becoming a large problem.
So each supervisor district has a little bit of discretionary money that we can help with charities, and I chose this one this time. It does so much good for the more bang for the buck. So many people are touched. If you look around here, you're helping horses, animals, and kids, and it just makes a difference in people's lives. So I think it's well spent.
I am going to tell you that this from Pinal County was the biggest blessing ever. I have just been praying, and there he was. There he was. And we've been able to get extra feed and all our shoeing, or all our trimming done, and just fixing things that truly needed to be fixed. And it's been a blessing. Jeff, you are a blessing. I want you to know that.
Expenses are up. Everybody knows what's going on with farm products and materials, and they just can't. It's totally donations, of course. So anything that anybody can do to help, it's greatly appreciated. And if you look around, they make wise use of it.
For her to open up her, basically her entire life to want to rescue, so that these animals have a place to go, but then to all the kids. And she loves them. She takes pictures with them. She walks around with them. It's just phenomenal. It's just a phenomenal place.
It's just a great organization, and I'm glad that I was able to help and my office was able to help. And everybody helps. It's all volunteers. It's just a team, community effort, and it's great.
I feel like it just makes people stronger, like gives people a community, like, oh, everybody's willing to help these horses.
And it's very hard when we know that we can't help one. But we do our very best to try.
It would be sickening if something happened and it couldn't be here. Not only just for the horses that get saved, because, I mean, if you look around, where would you put them if this place wasn't here?
Just going to keep trying to do as much as I can do to work with children and the horses. It's a beautiful combination. When you see children, even with anger problems or things like that, when they come here, it helps them.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I have.
That's it? All right. Item number 4, Purchasing Division Report. Tara Peterson. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the board. I am Tiara Peterson, Purchasing Manager for Pinal County, and this is your purchasing report for August 3rd, 2022. First, the board is requested to approve the following contracts. ROQ 226327, JOC for housing, electrical installation, repair, renovation, and replacement. We recommend JMAC Electrical LLC be awarded a contract beginning August 3rd, 2022. This contract will be used countywide. ROQ 226527, JOC for housing, roofing installation, repair, renovation, and replacement. We recommend Post and Beam Construction be awarded a contract beginning August 3rd, 2022, and running through August 2nd, 2023. This contract will also be used countywide. RFP 230524 for legal publication services. We recommend Casa Grande Valley Newspapers, Inc. be awarded a contract beginning August 1st, 2022 through July 31st, 2023. This is a one-year contract and is used countywide. Next, the board is requested to approve the following contract amendments. RFP 175723 for Human Resources Investigative Services. We recommend approval of amendment number 4 to exercise the optional extension period beginning August 29th, 2022 with the following suppliers. Investigative Research, Inc., and Trayan Associates, LLC. No further extensions remain, and the contract is used by the Human Resources Department. RFP 180423 for maintenance, repair, and operating supplies, including generator maintenance services. We recommend approval of Amendment Number 4 to exercise the optional extension period from August 29, 2022 through August 28, 2023 with the following suppliers: Advanced Mechanical Services, LLC, American Refrigeration Supplies, Inc., Climatech, LLC, Coolidge Ace Hardware, Maricopa Ace Hardware, Napa Auto Parts Marana, Napa Day Auto Supply, Prime Generator Solutions, LLC, Shaw's Interiors Incorporated, True Value Hardware, Galaxy Service Company, Inc., Mel's Auto, Refrigeration Supplies Distributor, Regals Enterprise, LLC, DBA Dubs Plumbing and Supply. This contract is used by the Facilities Department. IFB 190324 for aggregate slurry and Portland cement. We recommend approval of Amendment Number 4 to exercise the optional extension period beginning August 21st, 2022 with Cal Portland and Vulcan Materials. This contract is used by the Public Works Department. RFP 203026 for Public Defense Services Office Attorney Services. We recommend approval of Amendment Number 2 to run concurrent with the existing contract whose term began on June 30th, 2023 with Timothy Rogers of Rogers Legal Group, PLC, and the Law Office of Mark Talon. This contract is used by the Public Defense Services Office. Next, the Board is hereby notified of the following cooperative purchases made. PO number 247424 with Westlaw in the amount of $110,000 for legal and investigative research services used by the County Attorney. PO 247524 with Midway Chevy in the amount of $184,089.29 for new vehicle purchases used by Fleet Services. PO 247525 with Midway Chevrolet in the amount of $131,492.35, also for new vehicle purchases used by Fleet Services. PO 247620 for Midway Chevrolet in the amount of $114,062.16 for new vehicle purchases used by Fleet Services. PO 247622 with Midway Chevrolet in the amount of $228,124.32 for new vehicle purchases used by Fleet Services. PO 247623 with Midway Chevrolet in the amount of $228,124.32 for new vehicle purchase used by Fleet Services. PO 247654 with High Tech Network and Security Solutions, LLC in the amount of $214,696.39 for UPS and cooling upgrade hardware assembly startup used by the IT department. PO 247655 with Wex Bank in the amount of $249,999 for fuel card services used by Fleet Services. PO 247657 with Baker and Taylor Books in the amount of $220,000 for books used by the Library District. PO 247659 with Sabino Electric Incorporated in the amount of $76,790 for secondary UPS system, including equipment and services used by the IT department. And finally, the Board is requested to approve the following cooperative purchases. Requisition 164825 with Wex Bank in the amount of $2,314,000 for fleet card services used by Sheriff's Office. And Requisition 165165 with Midway Chevrolet in the amount of $964,791.38 for a new vehicle purchase used by Fleet Services. And that concludes your Purchasing Division report for August 3rd, 2022.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Peterson. Does the board have any questions? Supervisor Kavanaugh, are you still there? Do you have any questions?
No questions.
Thank you. All right. In that case, I'd ask for a motion, please.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to accept the Purchasing Division report presented today.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Peterson. Item number 5 is consent agenda. All items indicated by an asterisk will be handled by a single vote as part of the consent agenda unless a board member, county manager, or member of the public objects at the time the agenda item is called. So are there any items that the board, the county manager, or public wish to pull? I already have item U pulled by Mr. Billingsley from Planning and Development. Are there any other items anyone wishes to pull? Seeing none, may I get a motion, please, for items A through H minus U?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve items A through AH minus U.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Mr. Billingsley, item U.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I would ask that you continue this item. We have under review and are about to approve a final plat for Unit 19 of Saddlebrook. The developer contacted me last week, and they want to split that Unit 19 into 2 separate phases. And by doing so, they want to complete 1 phase before they start on the 2nd phase of that parcel. So they will have to post 2 separate financial assurances, 1 for phase 1, 1 for phase 2. So I would ask that you continue this item, and we'll come back at a future meeting.
You wish us to continue it or to withdraw it?
Withdraw, sorry.
Withdraw.
Withdraw.
Just
Yes, sir.
checking. Okay.
Yes, sir.
You know, all the words, right?
Thank you.
Okay, so very well. So may I get a motion to withdraw consent agenda item U?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to withdraw consent item U.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second. Second.
Motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. It will be withdrawn. Item U. All right. Moving along down the line, we will, let's see, recess the Board of Supervisors regular meeting to convene into special district meetings. We will move on to open the Flood Control District Board of Directors meeting. Consent items. All items indicated by an asterisk will be handled by a single vote as part of the consent agenda unless a board member, county manager, or member of the public objects at the time the agenda item is called. Let's see. Are there any items that the manager, the board, or the public wishes to pull at this time? Seeing none, may I get a motion, please?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve items A and B on consent items as presented.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you very much. I will now adjourn the Flood Control District Board of Directors meeting, and we will move to the Public Health Services District Board of Director meeting. Again, all items indicated by an asterisk will be handled by a single vote as part of the consent agenda unless a board member, county manager, or member of the public objects at the time the agenda item is called. Are there any items that the board, the county manager, or public wish to pull at this time? Seeing and hearing none, may I get a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve consent items A, B, and C of the Public Health Service District meeting.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you, gentlemen. I will now reconvene the Board of Supervisors regular board meeting, and we'll move to item 8, discussion approval of an electrical easement to Trico Electric Cooperative. Mr. Petty, you are up, sir.
Good morning, Chairman McClure, Vice Chairman Surdy, members of the board. I'm here to finish the electrical easement conveyance for a 152-foot easement to Trico Electric, so they'll be able to deliver power without going through the old infrastructure of the air park to a new development that we're working on. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Does the board have any questions for Mr. Petty?
No, I don't.
Where did the board go? Here we go. you have any questions, sir? Mr. Kavanaugh, any questions?
No questions.
All right. So in this case, no questions. So may I get a motion for item 8, please?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve item 8 as presented.
May I get a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. And just to be clear, this item requires unanimous consent of the board. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. Did you want me to do a roll call? That worked? Okay. Okay. Thank you. Hearing no opposition, motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Petty.
Thank you.
Bet. Item number 9 is public hearing and discussion, approval, disapproval of case CSR-003-22. And I believe Mr. Abraham is up.
All right, Jim's a lot taller than I am. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair and board members. Today's comprehensive sign review request is, whoa, there it goes. Okay. Is located here in the Gold Canyon area in the northern part of our county, as indicated by the red star. This is the subject site of the proposal here. Zoning's in the immediate area surrounding the case. We have CR5, CB2, which is our commercial zone. It's immediately adjacent to a commercial zone, CB1, and Kings Ranch Road is approximately here, moving through. An aerial photograph of the subject site showing the area surrounding the property is substantially developed. Mini storage facility across the street. There's some shopping opportunities, kitty corner to the south and west. The site immediately adjacent to the north and east is also a church as well. Now, interestingly enough, the site is actually zoned CR5 and is the site of a church, obviously the Center Stage Church. This is about maybe a quarter of a mile north of the intersection of US 60 and Kings Ranch Road as you're going up into the Gold Canyon area. Showing property divisions in the immediate area, so it's largely subdivided through subdivision plat, approved several years ago and substantially developed. The red circle around there indicates the notification area of today's case regarding our mail-outs. And then further zooming in on zonings in the immediate vicinity. Now, just to give some background on CSRs, I think this is the first time we've had to have a public hearing on a CSR in a while. And controversial sign reviews are requests from folks who want to exceed the sign code in terms of area or number or location and or type of signage as well. So most comprehensive sign reviews, there are some director authorized allotments that can occur. So whenever some signage is proposed that's beyond the typicals of the sign code, there's two routes. Either the director can approve it, or we ultimately have to take it to the Board of Supervisors because it's beyond those limits that we've installed for the director. So the sign itself is located, is basically going to be this. So this is a electronic reader board sign. Not expecting everyone to be immediately familiar with the area, but this is the pedestal that the previous sign is located. I was up in the area on some other business, and the previous sign has been removed. And we've got this electronic reader board sign here that's going to be approximately 5 feet in height total and then about 8.5 feet wide. And actually, that's what the sign used to look like on the north or on the top photograph there. Now, just to warn everybody, the sign is not going to be the one on the south picture, but a much smaller version. However, this is used to illustrate the type of graphics that can be illustrated on the sign. So it's like many of the other electronic reader boards that you see when you're driving throughout towns, that it's fully animated. It can be a variety of different graphics and different light levels. So, well, there's the subject site there. So our church property is on the northern part of that, and then the sign is indicated and shows approximately 50 feet to the Kings Ranch right-of-way. Interestingly enough, the current road surface of Kings Ranch is not reflective of the total right-of-way width. So there's a large amount of space in between the road and then the actual church property. But there's our sign there with the circle. And then some electrical diagrams that are part of the application, but really not really 100% relevant to the type of sign we're seeing today. So the proposal was looked at by our sign review committee. They ended up recommending denial of this request, and they cited some four reasons for that. And basically, to paraphrase that, there didn't appear to be much merit for the sign request. That given the site's location and its environment and larger context with other development in the immediate area, the sign didn't appear to really, the request didn't have the merit that it needed. However, the director, our community development director, who's also the zoning administrator, he ended up recommending approval because it met our process requirements, and there's a number of stipulations that we ask that if the board is desirous to approve this, that you install those stipulations of operation as part of the case. So one thing that we've heard, at least through the public outreach, is that the lighting of it will interrupt some dark sky concepts that the Gold Canyon folks hold dear up in that area. So we put a cap on the illumination levels, that it can only be 0.3 foot candles at the adjacent property line. 0.3 foot candles would be 1/3 of a Bic lighter held approximately 1 foot above the ground level. So they'll have to work with their photocells and their light sensors to make sure that they adhere to that. Also, the sign will have to be shut off between the hours of 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. Daily. And then, of course, the message rotate once every, no quicker than once every 8 seconds, excuse me. So that's about it in a nutshell, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Excuse me, I'd be remiss. We did have some late arriving letters in opposition to this. Mr. Rich Halfdahl writes the board and says that him and his wife are opposed to allowing the Center Stage Church. And a gentleman by the name of Shaheen writes that the signage is also too big and too bright, and urges denial of the case. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
So I have a quick question. So the previous sign that was there, can you back up to that?
Sure.
How large is that sign?
Looking at it, and the zone and the sign code would allow a 24 square foot signage at that location.
4 by 6.
Approximately.
And this one is 5 by 8?
That's correct.
And the sign code is size-wise?
So I just had that up.
You did, but
let me see here. So 24 square feet in area, but single-sided.
24 single-sided. So this would exceed the sign code.
A little bit over double, yeah.
A little over double. And was that sign there illuminated?
I believe it was.
Okay. And no complaints from that?
No.
Was it? Yeah, and you don't know, that's possibly how bright it was?
And no idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Are there any other questions from the board?
Yeah.
Supervisor Sturdy.
What do you mean by animated?
So digital signs take advantage of the fact that their message can change quite rapidly. Most are programmed with a computer, and the message can be anything pertaining to pretty much anything nowadays because of some legal rulings that have occurred in the past. So typically one regulation we put on signage is that the message can't rotate. It has to stay static for a certain amount of time.
So, I received lots and lots of correspondence on this as well, and one of the misconceptions seems to be that it's neon. This is in no ways neon.
No.
It is
LED.
Digital LED. So an example of this would be at every gas station when the prices change, they're changed that way also. They all have this type of a signs somewhere on their property that, I mean, the prices change every day. I think that the applicants are here and they're going to present. I'm going to, when they get up, I'm going to ask them to tone it down even more when they get up here. If I, right, Mr. Chairman, they will be speaking probably. Yeah. So I'm going to come back with this and take a line of questioning when it gets back to them.
Fair enough.
Any other questions? Supervisor Goodman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I'm just curious as to, you know, when it comes to businesses and things of that nature along these roads, why is it only single-sided? Why is it not double-sided? I mean, does our ordinance not allow that over there?
Not in this particular zone, no. Yeah, so I think the idea was back when the sign code was created that the sign would be mounted up against a wall, perhaps, or a destination where the sign is facing the street and parallel with rather than perpendicular to.
But right now it's facing perpendicular. It's not straight out.
Right now it is perpendicular,
Oh,
you're correct.
It's not vertical.
No. It's basically, it was that.
It's not parallel.
Not parallel.
It's
It's
not
not parallel.
Okay, vertical. I was just
Thank you, guys. I needed that help. You know, I flunked math, just so
I
you
took
know.
a stab,
so.
just took a stab at that one.
Yeah. Or my angles. I flunked my angles. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Oh, Miller.
Yeah, just,
Supervisor Miller.
and somebody spoke earlier about this, you know, which is fine, but they said that we turned down an electronic sign for Walgreens, I believe he said. I don't remember that. I mean, I don't remember everything that I voted on in the last 9 years, but boy, that one, because I've been fighting sign ordinances for a long time, and I think I would have remembered that one.
If memory serves me correctly, this was many, many years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, which then leads me to one more question. When was this sign code enacted, and how many times has it been updated since it's been enacted?
That's a good question. So it was I believe the version you see today is about 93, and it's been updated maybe 3 or 4 times since that time period.
Okay. That's a long time.
Supervisor Goodman, and then the Supervisor Sturdy.
I guess to follow up with what you just stated, when was the last time it was updated?
We added some provisions in 2010 for A-frames and some temporary signage.
And so it's been since 2010 that we've done any updates at all?
That's correct.
I got here in 12.
Supervisor Sturdy.
Steve, the gentleman that spoke earlier said that this could lead to a chain reaction of every business wanting to go bigger. This, what is before us now is kind of a special use, one time. How do we prevent this from happening again and every business trying to one-up each other?
Well, that's a great question, because the code right now would require every single applicant who wanted to do something similar to go through this exact process. So they would end up in this venue every single time, and so it would end up being a function of the board. Long term, we'd have to look at amendment criteria, possibly what are some of the situations you need to present to get in front of the Board of Supervisors with sign requests, but most jurisdictions have some sort of mechanism to allow for folks to ask for things that are beyond the scope of the code, and most of the time it ends up here at the Board of Supervisors.
Supervisor Miller. Nice peripheral there.
Yeah. Good basketball. These signs are being used all over. I mean, I just was on a vacation trip, and I don't know how many these illuminated type signs you see throughout the United States, and not just in Arizona. And I mean, they're popular in Arizona. My point being, is there a sign code that maybe we ought to be looking at to update something from 1993? And again, there's a lot of things that have changed in marketing methods. There's a lot of things that have changed, and I mean, there are ways to make these toned down and a little less, I guess, for lack of a better word, offensive, because these signs seem to be offensive to some people. But they do work 24/7, 365 for businesses and for people that want to get the message out. These lighted signs, actually, I don't know a city or a town or a county that doesn't have them on wheels, where they take them out and use them, you know, for all different types of events and traffic controls and those kinds of things. In other words, they are kind of almost a safety way of being able to get a message out. So I digress, I guess, with my editorial side of this thing, but I think we really should try and get up to speed with the latest.
But I believe the issue at hand is, as you stated, they're not allowed in this type of zone. Is that zoning area? Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's correct.
So they are allowed in some kinds of zoning in the county?
So we're dealing with two requests here. It's a little larger than it's supposed to be, and then the electronic reader board. The electronic reader board is not allowed anywhere in the county.
Anywhere. That's
Right.
what I understood.
Yeah. So then the size of this sign could be allowed in other spots in our county.
County
Supervisor Surdy first.
County only, because inside the municipalities, you do see these.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Supervisor Goodman.
How are these in Thank you. How are these in comparison with the other signage there in Gold Canyon?
Well, the other signage in Gold Canyon is definitely not digital, for sure. It's mostly low profile, has that southwesterny kind of theming to it. It's pushed way back from the Kings Ranch Road right-of-way due to the fact that the road surface is not representative of the entire right-of-way. So it's smaller, for sure.
Okay, thank you.
I had one there. Are there any other questions? Okay, I don't see one.
Nope.
Okay, so this is a public hearing, and I'd open the public hearing now. Are there those from the public that wish to speak? I believe I have Terry Lynn Kluser. I'm sorry, did I murder that name? Oh, okay.
Mr. Chair, if I may, can we have the applicant talk first?
Oh, it's not on my list, but yes, I'm sorry, yes. It should be on there, and I'm sorry. The applicant is here to speak. There we are. Sorry about that.
Thank you. I am Sharon Sheffer. I represent Center Stage Church. I am from Apache Junction myself. And of course, we are located in Gold Canyon for the church. I'm not exactly sure what I should say at this point, but I would like to thank you for allowing me to speak, gentlemen. And I think what I will do is just begin with a little bit of history of the facility of our organization. Center Stage Church is a nonprofit religious organization incorporated in 2004. The first church services were held in a home that quickly changed, and they went to a school facility to lease. That lasted for a little while in East Mesa, and then we connected with Apache Junction Unified School District, and for the last 12 years, we've been leasing property facilities from them. They recently informed us that they needed their property back. We were in Superstition Mountain Elementary School at the time, so we started looking for a new home. We were thrilled when we found the one in Gold Canyon. The church was looking for an outreach program. So in 2014, we felt we needed some major event, something large to help our church grow, to help bring people into our facility. So we developed a community outreach program, which is our theater. It's a community theater that we invite all of community members to. It has been operating now since 2014. This will be our 9th season. Because we had a strong theatrical background inside the church, we felt this would be a really good way to reach out to the public, and most people like to get involved in performing arts in some way. And we open it up to everyone. It's all members of the public are invited to come and be with us. They can be actors, they can be technicians, they can just volunteer, or they can come and be patrons to the theater. You have to have an audience in order to have a show. We generally present 3 or 4 Broadway quality shows on an annual basis. Occasionally we have weekend concerts. We have future plans to include youth programs. Previously, when we were at SMES, we had a youth theater that we would bring in and allow to use our space because theirs was too small. We've also partnered with the community. With Apache Junction, we had public meetings there for the neighborhood. We had health forums where they would bring different groups of community health people in, and the community would be invited into these different, to talk with these people. In other words, we tried to be a community partner. When we found our home in Gold Canyon, we were thrilled because we found out we could purchase the property and make it a permanent home. We've been leasing for so long, we've been just kind of disconnected with actually a property that we could develop the way we felt it needed to be for our organization. So when we found this, we were thrilled. The purchase process is in place. We hope to have it within the next 60 days actually be our own property. Our intention in the Gold Canyon community is to be a part of the community. We want to be involved in the community. We want to be a good neighbor. We want to be, well, what we would like to have as a neighbor, somebody, give and take. We just invite the community to come and be a part of us, and we want to be a part of them. As far as our sign, we had the sign in Apache Junction at the SMES location under a special use permit because there were 2 signs on the property. Generally, we use a 6-second display change, which is recommended by the manufacturer, and we had the sign on for 24/7. Now, we are not opposed at all to having you place some restrictions on that. We understand and we appreciate the dark sky concept. We support it. We have no problem changing what we do to fit what is needed in the community. The size of the sign, I believe, I wasn't aware that it was too large. The sign that currently there to our measurements is a 5x10. Ours is a 4x8, and we are 2-sided. The sign that there, I believe, has a header on it, a lighted header that might take up an extra foot to make the difference. But square footage-wise, I didn't understand that we were that much larger than what was already there. But it's a tasteful sign. It's not, I don't know how to describe this. I'm not a technical person. But the illumination of the sign, the LED sign, is much less than the white fluorescent bulb sign. We believe our sign is aesthetically pleasing. It is set back from Kings Ranch Road. It is not immediately on the Kings Ranch Road. So it is not a distraction for drivers passing. And we feel the sign can be compatible with the dark sky concept. It can be illuminated at whatever level we need. We can run it at whatever speed we need. We're just pretty well willing to cooperate with whatever you decide we should do. We would just like to use our sign because it costs a lot of money. And it's something that our patrons are older citizens, and it helps them find us. It helps them know where Center Stage Church is or Zao Theater Show is. We found even on Ironwood Road, as busy as that street was, the sign helped a lot, but even so, people still missed us. And it was sitting right out on the street there. So, do you have any questions that I could answer maybe?
I do a quick question. Your present sign, I believe you said it's like 5 by 10.
I believe that's the size of it.
Okay, I see measurements on this picture. It's two-sided, correct?
You know, I've never really paid attention to that. We dismantled the fluorescent bulbs out of it, so I've only seen it lit maybe once. I think Ms. Klukar probably can answer that better than I can because she was at the church next door to us, so she probably knows more about that sign than I do.
I'm just looking at where it was. I would guess that it was two-sided because you had the stick on the snap-in letters.
Yeah, and I've really never paid any attention.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Mr. Supervisor Zerdy?
I do. You said you're willing to compromise even more. The 8 seconds, it's not going to flash, but as you see it change the message, it would appear to, off the corner of your eye, you'd see something change. Can you slow that down even more to, say, 15 seconds or so?
Sure, if you think that's what would be helpful to the community and to the drivers going by, we're willing.
What time do your shows end?
Our shows generally end around 9:30 or 10 o'clock.
So there's no need for the sign to be on till 11 o'clock. Could you go 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock? I mean, the most obnoxious lights, you speak on your own background. We have Prospector Park and Apache Junction. The brightest lights are the ball fields. They have to be off at 10 o'clock and sometimes earlier. So is that a concession that you could make as well?
Sure. 10 o'clock wouldn't be a problem. Our patrons get to the theater, and once they're there, they're generally fine. It's just finding us initially. When they leave, 10 o'clock would be fine.
If a motion is made, do those have to be in the motion, those two?
We have to amend the
We'd have to add the stipulations, yes.
Okay. Also, Sue, did you say you'd offer to offer up the space for community meetings?
Yes, we do. We are more than willing to open up. In fact, we're negotiating with the Homeowners Association right now to use our facility for their meetings.
Okay.
So yes, we're very open to that.
Also, in downtown Apache Junction, they have the marquee sign, and anybody can petition to have their message on that sign. Is it possible that other groups in Gold Canyon, for instance, Adobe or one of the HOAs, during the off times, can they put up their messages? Or like emergencies, let's say there's a crash at Florence Junction, can someone program it to say, hey, we're closed at Peralta, whatever, or someone else is having an event, can you offer up the sign for the whole community to use?
Sure, we can do that. Definitely.
And you mentioned when you do the theater, are these actors from all over the state? Where do you get them? And what are the opportunities for the locals to participate and actually be actors or stagehands, et cetera?
We have open auditions for every show that we produce. The people come from clear over to the west side of the valley to come out and play with us. Community members are welcome to come to any of the auditions. If they prefer not to be on the stage, but they're technically minded, we have openings for people to do technical work. We always have need of volunteers to help with costuming, ushering, backstage, prop moving. We always need people. So anybody who wants to be involved in theater is welcome to come, and we'll give them a job. But there's no pay with the job.
For the actual performances, the cover charge is charged. Is there a profit made, or is this basically a nonprofit? How does that all work?
Basically, this is a nonprofit. Yes. Most of the money goes back into the next production. It's very costly to get the rights to do these shows, especially the musicals, and that's our favorite thing to do. It's costly to create the props, to get the costumes. It's a very expensive endeavor. So we look at it as a community outreach program versus a money-making situation. Whatever money that is made is put back into the facility. We bought the theater, bought the chairs, the new chairs we use. We had, at the other building, we had to have a big scissor lift for the ceilings. The theater purchased that. We put all the money back into doing something for the church or the theater. It's basically all used up.
Gold Canyon is a very artful community, so I think you could get, I mean, if you get the right volunteers there, I mean, they would thrive at that. And there's already art fairs that happen. Is it in the parking lot where you're at, or in the bigger one? I think they have an art show there a couple times a year, and that's the kind of thing that I mean, that you could use a sign to advertise. You know, this Saturday art show, you know,
I think
and then that could alternate with your message. Just if you have a show, then yours goes off, and then you would advertise for the community art show as well.
Sure.
That would be great for the community, I think.
We have no problem with that.
I don't have a question for you, but Mr. Abraham, quick question. So just a quick question for you. So much is made of the dark sky concept. I keep hearing dark sky concept, and I don't believe our lighting code actually discusses anything to do with a dark sky concept. Is that true?
It is. I think a more accurate would be not as bright light code, basically. The words dark sky is that it recognizes the intent of the ISNEA, I believe is what it's called, but the code does not resemble your dark sky type places like Sedona or Coconino County. It's not even close.
And there is no designation there, and we don't have that in our code.
That is correct.
Thank you. Clarification. Supervisor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And that was one of my questions. I don't believe we have an ordinance, a dark sky ordinance in Pinal County. So that being said, the dark sky ordinances, though, when in place, typically monitor and regulate upward lighting. In other words, it's because it goes into the air and diminishes the ability to look at the stars or what have you. So is there anybody here from, was it Summit is the sign maker? Is there anybody here from that organization?
Actually, Watchfire is the manufacturer.
Watchfire?
Summit is one of the people who maintain the sign for us.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, so my question really is, though, what is the illumination above the sign? I mean, that's what would be measured if we had a dark sky ordinance. What would be measured is how much penetration does the light go into the above the sign. And as I'm looking at that sign, if any, it's very, very minimal. It appears to be somewhat of a recessed apparatus to the sign. So I really am more concerned on the physics of this and the light, the candle lights being projected above the sign, because that's where it seems to be bothering everybody in the dark sky issue, even though we don't have a dark sky ordinance. So I'm really concerned. I guess if nobody can answer that question, I think it's pretty minimal, if it is at all, of a projection upward from this sign.
When we contacted Watchfire Signs regarding the dark sky issue, he referred us to Fountain Hills.
Okay.
They have a dark sky ordinance. The sign, very similar to the one that we have, was recently installed at a theater over there.
Okay.
And it meets all of their dark sky criteria. He said, we can set the sign to whatever you decide it needs to be.
Okay.
So if there's a certain level of light that the planners feel is required, we'll go to Watchfire and say, okay, figure out how to set this sign for us, and,
Yeah.
and we
We
will
have to
do
be
that.
below this rating, whatever it is.
Yes, whatever rating.
Whatever it is.
And he said
that-
it should not, it should be okay for any dark sky ordinance because it doesn't have much illumination above the sign.
That's my point, and that's what I would suspect, because these signs are used quite frequently in areas where there are dark skies, and so there has to be a way to meter that or monitor it or understand that we are meeting the luminous readings that are allowed within dark sky areas. That's my point. If it makes sense to anybody.
A dull point.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Hearing none, I'd move on to the public hearing aspect of this.
Thank you,
piece.
gentlemen.
Thank you. And first I have, I'll try it again, Terilyn Klukar. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I live also in Apache Junction, unincorporated, and I'm opposing this because I used to be a code compliance officer for this area. And I'm familiar with message boards, reader boards. Walgreens does have one right down the street, but they were restricted in the ordinance to just time and temperature. Now, every now and then they slip and they do some advertising, but they're only supposed to do time and temperature. It's a very small sign. And as a code compliance officer in the past, my two biggest complaints in this area were signs and lights. And I'm just afraid that this is going to open up a huge can of worms, as Glenn mentioned before. We don't normally allow these message boards, these reader boards. It's in the ordinance. It states specifically, no flashing or intermittent illumination shall be used. Internally lighted signs may be reverse print. No sign or any portion of a sign shall rotate, move, or simulate movement by means of fluttering, spinning, or reflection devices, not including temporary promotional signs. Nor shall it contain an electronic message device except for time and temperature, which is what Walgreens has. Nor shall it flash, blink, be audible, or be animated by any means. And I believe this was added to the ordinance because of the safety factors of people being distracted by these signs. Mostly you think of the big signs like on the highways in Phoenix and whatnot, and people will drive by and look at the signs. Maybe in this case it wouldn't pertain as much because it is a smaller sign, but it is still 4 by 8, two-sided. So that's 32 times, that's 64 square feet of lit sign. I can guarantee you're going to get complaints from the neighbors. Now, can they tone it down? Can they limit the time? I'm sure they can do that. How do we know, though, until we actually get the sign installed, what it's going to look like? I mean, and they mentioned 0.3-foot candles off the property line. But 0.3-foot candles, I know because I used to go and monitor lights in Gold Canyon. On an LED light, that's a lot of light. And if you have a light meter sometime, go out and just measure light in the neighborhood. And 0.3-foot candles is a lot of light off the property line. So in other words, I just think it's a dangerous precedent to start in the county to allow others to start doing these motion signs, the lit signs. I always thought Pinal County was a more rural-based county. I know that we are growing and there's more community involvement in this type of thing, but I still think that this is going to open a huge can of worms. It's going to be hard to enforce. Who's going to go out there and stand at night? Is it going every 8 seconds or every 6 seconds? Who's going to measure the illumination? In other words, I think it's going to be a problem with enforcement down the road. And as far as the look of the community, the dark sky ordinance, we don't have a dark sky ordinance, but we have a light ordinance that's very strict. All the businesses, residential areas have their own measurements and restrictions in terms of how much light can be emitted from a property or a light fixture. So it is it's not called the dark sky, but it is a light ordinance.
Ms. Booker, can you please wrap it up?
Okay. Anyway, that's all I have to say, so I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Walp, you're back up, sir. Or not.
I just need a couple seconds.
Please.
Thank you, and very good questions from the board, and I appreciate it. The concern that I'm hearing from the people that I'm dealing with is that they fear that once the one sign is done, then there's going to be another one, there's going to be another one. And if you're familiar with Kings Ranch Road, it's going to turn into a mini Las Vegas strip type thing. The people that live there don't want that. They move there for the calmness, the quietness. They want to get away from that, and that's why they move there. And that's the general feeling I'm getting from the people. They just don't want that street to turn into what they feel it's going to turn into. Again, nothing against the church. It's just the sign. And I think the sign is way too big. It's going to be way too bright. And I can tell you, there are businesses on there, as soon as you say yes, they're going to be applying. I can guarantee it. Thank you very much, but I appreciate everything that you're doing. Thank you.
Mr. Walp, would you just for the record please state your name and general?
My name is Glenn Walp, and I reside in Gold Canyon, Arizona. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Could I ask Steve Abraham a question?
Supervisor Sturdy, go ahead.
Could I ask Steve Abraham a question?
Yes, sir.
Does being double-sided, is that cumulative effect, is that what makes it too big?
Yes.
So this would be another possible concession that just came to me. Since they had a one-sided sign before, could they mask off the back side and just go the front side, and then it would be conforming, would it not?
I believe it would be. Yeah, that would be something that they could agree to.
And we've thrown in so many possible concessions. I don't know if maybe this could be come back at another time where we could also talk about the what is the amount of lumens and how does that get measured. And I also believe there is an upcoming meeting, and I don't have the time just to talk general dark skies in general. So that's another whole thing. So anyway, I'm throwing that out there if the applicant is listening.
Okay, thank you. And another person of interest, let's see. Mr. Revelis, you're up, sir.
Roberto Revelis, resident of Gold Canyon, representing Gold Canyon Community Incorporated as the president of the board. Our involvement in this issue dates back to a year ago when we actually surveyed the community on various concerns of the community, and dark skies was a top concern of interest in preserving dark skies. We arranged to meet with Center Stage, and they very graciously hosted a community meeting. Sadly, only 7 people from the public showed up to represent the community interests. And Center Stage was very gracious in responding to the criticisms, and as they've repeated today, willing to accommodate in the interest of being a good neighbor. I'm personally an art patron myself. I'm a founding member of the Gold Canyon Arts Council. And our art community welcomes the presence of the productions by Center Stage. However, we also put out last week a survey asking the community what are their concerns about this new signage issue. Some 100 people responded. 75% of them said we're absolutely opposed. Nonetheless, I spoke yesterday with the representative, Ms. Schaefer of Center Stage, and again, she illustrated good faith effort in trying to respond to the wishes of the community. I think what's happening is that we have heard here at this podium county personnel refer to dark skies. I think there's a common misunderstanding in the community that we respect dark skies, despite the fact that we understand formally there is no dark sky ordinance. but there is a lighting standards ordinance. So I think that resolution of this issue can be achieved by tabling or continuing a decision, because I would not like to see Center Stage denied the opportunity of adequate but conforming signage in the community. If you table or continue this topic and allow the county to produce standards which apparently don't exist or are under study, and incidentally, I have a hard time hearing the representative of the development office because he seems to present in a conversational tone, and I think the volume needs to be turned up because, Mr. Chairman, you respond in comparable conversational tone, and I moved up a row to try to hear a little bit better. So that's my recommendation, that we conduct the business in a tone that everybody can hear, but most importantly, pertinent to the issue right now. Continue or table until we have clarification so that we won't have a repeat every time one of the new businesses, and we're welcoming new services to our community, but we'd hate for them to have to come in and again reschedule to readjust to a different set of circumstances. Set the standards so that everybody will know what they are, and so there won't be a huge expenditure of $50,000, for example, that Center Stage has invested in this sign. So that's my recommendation, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any others who wish to address the board? Ma'am?
Yes, my name is Lori Loomis again, and I am speaking about the sign. I have a couple of suggestions. One of the things I don't appreciate about having the sign in the location that they want to put it is, if you were to bring up the sign picture again, if you'll notice right above the sign is the mountain. And that right away is just detracting from the beauty that we're supposed to be seeing, which is why we all moved to Gold Canyon, is to appreciate the mountain when you're going to be having a flashing sign. As we all know, our children are very easily involved in electronics, and we want them to be swayed from looking at tablets and electronics all of the time. And now, as adults driving, we're going to be having a flashing sign with messages that as driving, we will be having electronics that we're supposed to be reading while we're driving. And to me, that's a contrary message that we are sending to ourselves as adults driving. It is just an accident waiting to happen. I'm just opposed to it, and completely, because it takes away from the nature aspect of it. I just have to turn onto Sleepy Hollow Road, and I've actually missed my turn just because I'm staring at the mountain, just because of the beauty that you're supposed to be enjoying. You know, you're just following the road, but with that sign right there, it's going to be a problem. I don't see what's wrong with having a stationary sign. If they want to have that lit sign, why don't they move it out onto Highway 60, where they're going to get more people to look at it? What's wrong with that? They will definitely have more people see it out on Highway 60. I don't see what the problem is with that. That would be a solution. But to have it right in town is going to cause a problem. That would be my only suggestion. And then for the sign ordinance, flank it off, frame it off so that it's the right size. Put it so that it's within its boundaries, so that it fits the square footage. That's the only suggestions that I could come up with. But we need to, follow what's in place, instead of trying to have to create new guidelines to follow every time. Thank you.
Thank you for the comments. All right, any others?
I can answer one of those. Every sign ordinance, you cannot have a remote sign that's not attached, not associated with your business.
You can't have off-site signing.
Off-site, yeah, because we had restaurants that were out, and what if we put a sign here for a restaurant way over there? It just cannot work that way. It has to be at the location of the business.
Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor
Miller.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What was the legal square footage for this location? It's too big, it's too little, it's what is it?
24 square feet.
Total?
Yeah.
So 12 square feet?
Each side.
On each side?
Right.
3 by 4, pretty small.
Any other comments or questions from the board?
Can I? Yeah, I do have one more.
I guess so.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is that based off of lineal footage along Kings Ranch Road? What do you use for the formula to determine this property's legal sign square footage availability?
Bringing that up now, but I believe in that particular zoning district, and that might be the issue, is that it's zoned multifamily. It's actually a residential zoning category. It's a flat requirement, like it's there's no street computation. It's basically, this is how much you get. Let me double check that.
So residential zoning will not allow anything larger than, you're saying, 24 feet.
Mm-hmm.
That's a challenge in itself.
All right, are there any other questions or comments from the board? Any others from the public? Seeing none, I would ask for a motion on this item, please. Actually, first I would close the public hearing. Thank you so much. Close the public hearing. And then now I would ask for Mr. Abraham to talk again.
Thank you. I was just to jump in here. So just some minor procedural maintenance here. The stipulations that we're talking about are, and I'm going to go ahead and read them into the record to make it a little bit cleaner for modification. Stipulation number 1 would be the sign's minimum display time shall not change more than once every 8 seconds. 2, the illumination levels. Electronic message displays shall incorporate photocell/light sensors with automatic dimming technology to adjust display brightness in accordance with ambient light conditions. Displays shall have a brightness level of no greater than 0.3 foot candles above ambient light conditions at any property line. 3, maintenance. Any allowed electronic message display that malfunctions or is damaged shall be repaired or disconnected within 24 hours by the owner or operator of the sign. And 4, the sign shall be deactivated between the hours 11 p.m. through 7 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. Okay. Any additional questions? But thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Other questions or comments from the board?
Mr. Chairman.
Let's see, Supervisor Kavanaugh.
Thank you. And just for clarification, what I've heard from Mr. Abraham is that, number 1, reader boards are not allowed anywhere in the county, and number 2, this is more than double the allowed square footage. Am I correct in those understandings, Mr. Abraham?
You are.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Supervisor Sturdy.
I hate making motions.
Then I'd suggest
if someone makes the motion, they can change it. I mean, it doesn't have to be written in the stipulation. Can it just be verbal?
Mr. Keller.
That would depend on what it is.
For instance, 8 seconds to 12 seconds and off by 9 o'clock.
That would need to be a change to the stipulation.
Verbally.
Verbally can be done.
Okay.
Would you care to make a motion? You don't want to do that. Okay. May I ask for a motion, please, on this item?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think that the motion would be to approve the sign with the new stipulations of rotation of the message 12 seconds and the hours to be reduced to 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock for approval with those new stipulations.
Yeah. Can we talk in between motions?
We'll have a motion.
We need a second.
Yeah, 9 o'clock. I mean, in the summertime, it wouldn't even be dark. It gets dark about 9 o'clock, so.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. So I have a motion and some comments. Can I get a second, please?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Motion passes 3-2. Oh, I'm sorry.
With the new
with the new stipulations, yes. Motion passes 3-2 with the new stipulations. All right. Item number 10, and in this case, we're going to have item 10, 11, and 12 will be discussed together, and we will have Sangeeta Dokar. You are up, ma'am.
Thank you, Chairman, Vice Chair, and board members. Sangeeta Dokar presenting the following three cases. The first is a bad amendment. The second one is a rezone. And the third one is a new pad overlay. The first one...
Everyone else has left the call.
Well, thank you.
So to begin with, the first one is a pad amendment, PZPD-013-22. This is the Sunland Estates pad amendment. The proposal is requesting to remove 718 acres from the original 920 acres of Sunland Estates Planned Area Development Overlay District. This pad was approved in the year 2000 under PZPD 05200. As mentioned, the total acreage is 718. The location is along west of South Lamb Road, south of West Aldorf Road, and north of the city of Eloy. Owner applicant, Avra Plantation, Inc., EMN 70, Roth IRA, LLC, DKM Family Trust. Daniel Bingham is the applicant representing all of the owners, and the agent is Rose Law Group. Jordan Rose is the representative. The county map showing the location, one can see that it is in the southern portion, central of the county, and you can see that it's in the Arizona City area, north of Eloy, city of Eloy. The area map showing these two parcels, as part of two parcels, showing in red, and it's private land, and showing the surrounding zoning for this. Southern portion of these two parcels is the city of Eloy. It is abutted by the state land on the western portion. There's residential development on the north and the east portion of these parcels. The comprehensive plan for this has already been a green energy production that was approved last year as part of the Arizona City Solar, which would be the following cases. This comprehensive plan, you can also see that it encompasses the 718 acres is portion, those are two parcels that are involved in this. Existing zoning is RVP, which is a recreational vehicle park zone, and the MH zone, a manufactured home zone. You can also see in this existing zoning the portion of the Arizona City, the Stagecoach Road, the corner of Milligan and Lamb Road already being developed. The northern portion, again, GR, state land on the western side. Eastern portion along Lamb Road is pretty much developed. Southern portion is the city of Eloy. Aerial showing largely undeveloped land at this point in time. So this is the Sunland Estates. The original acreage for this was 920 acres, which was the total pad area. And the red portion, which is showing, is the portion that needs to be removed. It says divorcing off of the original pad. So what would remain is on the right-hand side of this map showing the remnant 203 acres of the original pad. Sunland Estates project details. This area that is requesting to be removed is going to be part of the Arizona City Solar Project, and details of which would follow in the next two cases that I would be presenting again. This is the original development plan of the Sunland Estates that was approved in 2000. And one can see it as what was largely a bubble diagram. And the portion number 1 in the northeast corner of this has already been developed along Milligan and Lamb Road. And the red dotted line is showing the portions that are requested for removal from this original Sunland Estates pad. So what happens is the land use for existing table, which was for 920 acres, for number of units is 3,247 units, is now reduced to 203 acres with 700 units. However, there's no change in the development standards. The 203 acres would still follow all development standards as per the original pad. Some pictures taken along north of this, one can see that's along Lamb Road, and western portion is the parcels involved. South, pictures along south. Along east, opposite, one can see development already happened, houses being built. And west into the property, which is the Sunland Estates, it's not developed at all. Issues for boat's consideration: total area is being reduced from 920 to 200 acres for the development of the Arizona City Solar Project. That's going to be part of that project. All stipulations 1 to 15 of the original case would be valid for the remaining 203 acres. Site plan submittal for the remainder pad, which is the 203 acres, would trigger a minor pad amendment request to be reviewed and approved by the Community Development Director. We received no letters of opposition, and Planning and Zoning approved this with the 4 stipulations as shared with you in the staff report. I would request Natasha to move forward with the next case because we're going to see all the 3 cases together. So the next case is going to be the rezone case for the Arizona City Solar. So this case is a rezone from the existing MH and RVP Zone 2, the I3 zoning, that is the first case. The proposal is requesting 1,677 acres from General Rural Zoning District, RVP, and Manufactured Home to I3 to allow for development standards for a solar energy facility with battery energy storage. The pad overlay also is requesting the approval for the same area, 1,677 acres, for development of the solar power plant. Location is, again, along the same area. Subject site is west along South Lamb Road, south of West Eldorf's Road, north of the city of Eloy, approximately 6.5 miles west of I-10 on the outskirts of Arizona City. Same applicants and agents for this project too. The county map, again, showing the same location for this solar project. The vicinity map now shows the earlier 2 parcels that are now part of this Arizona City Solar, and you can see it adds further more parcels to the north and south of the Sunland Estates. Similar zoning showing GR, state land to the west, south is City of Eloy. Development happened already along north of Alsdorf Road and along the east of the Lamb Road. Aerial map showing all of the parcels for this project, totally undeveloped, and at this point, just development on the north and east portion. Area map again showing the same areas with additional areas added to this Arizona City Solar, in addition to the 2 parcels that are going to requested for divorce from the Sunland Estates, and also parcels to the south, which abut the City of Eloy. Comprehensive plan, which was approved as green energy production, was for this whole area. That also included those 2 parcels that are requested for divorce. The current zoning is GR, manufactured home, and RVP, and showing the maps showing those colors. Proposed zoning is I3 with a pad overlay. Development standards for I3, minimum lot area is none. Building setbacks, front is 20 feet. Side is 0, 25 abutting residential and rural, 10 feet, 25 feet abutting residential or rural. So minimum is 90 feet is proposed as per proposed pad. The maximum building height is 50 feet and as per I3 zoning. There's no change in the proposed pad for development standards. This is the site plan overall, showing how the solar panels are going to be laid out. And in my further slides, I will show you some of the circulation, access, and trails. So the red dots show the entry points into the site along Milligan Road and along the Lamb Road. So the red dots then take you to the internal roads that are been showing in red where the panels have been laid out. One can see that the access roads are 2 access. One is along the Lamb Road and one is centrally in the project along the Milligan Road where you enter into and again have the internal circulation. The trails as shown in green dotted line, is along the Alsdorf Road on the northern portion of this project boundary and along the east side on the Lamb Road, which is abutting the project portions. The blue dotted lines shows the CMU wall locations, and that is along, again, the development that has already happened along the Alsdorf Road, along the east portion of the Lamb Road and the east portion of the project area boundary. So some subject side details. This project is going to be 275 megawatt full of PV solar energy facility with battery storage on that